Good afternoon. I'm Keith Stellman, meteorologist in charge of the National Weather Service in Peachtree City. This is your weekly weather briefing for the week starting Thursday, August 28th. This is the hazard outlook for North and Central Georgia over the next 7 days, including the Monday Labor Day holiday. As you can see, there is a low risk for hazardous weather Friday through Sunday, and that is mainly for rain and scattered showers and thunderstorms, particularly on Saturday, where there could be a flood threat introduced across portions of the area, and that may linger into Sunday. Scattered showers and some drying out will occur once we get into Monday through the middle part of next week. So let's hone in on the Friday and Saturday time frame, since that's when the majority of the weather will be for us this week. This is the weather pattern looking at Friday. We have a stalled cold front that's brought us the nice cool weather this week down along the Gulf Coast. It will begin to try and return north, and with that will bring more moisture into the region late Friday into early Saturday. We could see some thunderstorms develop across southern Georgia and an isolated flash flood threat develop late Friday into early Saturday. Fast forward into Saturday, we got a weak frontal boundary that will be sinking in from the northeast, and in combination with a weak low pressure that develops down along the Gulf Coast, somewhere in between the two, there could be some heavy rain that starts to develop between the two fronts, which is across a good portion of the state of Georgia. There are some model discrepancies for Saturday, particularly across northern Georgia, and we're going to dive into that in just a second. Let's take a look at the model discrepancies that are in play for Saturday, since that is when the biggest challenges are for us from a forecast perspective. Let's call this Model 1. This is the reflectivity forecast for Saturday, or beginning late Friday through Saturday evening across much of the state. And as you can see, showers and thunderstorms develop late Friday and overspread the region into Saturday. The thing to note here is that we see a lot of shower activity develop along and north of I-20. There are some guidance that is depicting a little bit heavier activity further north, north of Interstate 20. Some guidance is suggesting that there could be some heavier amounts embedded within this rain that starts to overspread the area on Saturday. And the key here is how far north is that northward extent of the rain shield that moves in on Saturday. We'll call this Model 2. This is the drier of the solutions, at least for the further north extent of the state. And as you can see, again, it's starting Friday evening through Saturday. There is a little bit drier. It does keep a lot of the heavier convection a little further south on Saturday. This is looking at about 6 a.m. You can see some of that shower thunderstorm activity developing south of Interstate 20 and then overtake further south into South Georgia as the day wears on Saturday. And so because of that, some of the heavier amounts will remain over middle and southern portions of Georgia should this solution verify. And the northward extent does not extend much further north than Interstate 20. So those that are further north of Interstate 20 may end up with a little bit drier, maybe a cloudier day on Saturday as opposed to a rainy day on Saturday. And so that forecast discrepancy is what we're up against for the weekend. This one slide will capture sort of that discrepancy that we're seeing in the models for Saturday. We'll call this Model 1 versus Model 2. It's really the European versus the GFS. This is the total rainfall forecast from each of those models through Sunday morning. And on the top, we see the European rainfall forecast, which overall is depicting a much wetter scenario for much of the state, not just north of Interstate 20. It is depicting a further north axis of heavier rainfall, including north of Interstate 20, with some heavier rainfall potential. When we look at the graphic on the bottom, the GFS, you can see that not only is the rainfall amounts lighter overall, but the heavier rain is suppressed much further south in southern Georgia. So I showed you those discrepancies to say here is the official Saturday official forecast from the National Weather Service here. We are sort of taking a blended approach between both the drier and the wetter solutions, and we meet somewhere in the middle. As you can see, there is a chance of rain across a good portion of the state, with the highest chances further south, where our confidence is much higher. However, I do want to point out that, and from what I just showed you, that the chances across northern Georgia could go down if we see that drier solution sort of trend and play out or we could see your chances across northern Georgia increase should we see that wetter solution start to play out. Rainfall amounts, we will see in the QPF forecast, we can see that the heaviest amounts are further south for right now, where our confidence is much higher, and we could see an increase amounts, particularly from that Columbus to Macon area. We could see amounts increase with time there as we get closer to the event and we start to hone in on whether it's a wetter or a drier solution. So because of the rain risk and the heavy rain risk coming in, even though it is a lower confidence forecast, we have a marginal risk of excessive rainfall introduced for our area for Friday. And this is primarily for that time period from late Friday evening into the overnight period as we bleed into Saturday. We could see some rainfall amounts up to about an inch or so, particularly in the southwestern portions of the state and southwestern portions of our area. Of all the days, Saturday looks like the day where we could have the biggest risk for any type of hazardous weather, and that includes flash flooding. There is a flash flooding risk on Saturday introduced by the Weather Prediction Center. Again, a marginal risk of excessive rainfall. However, we could see a slight risk introduced should that heavier rainfall solution start to play out. But I do want to point out on the map here, the area that I've boxed in red, we do have a higher confidence of a heavy rain risk there in that red box area from basically along and south of I-20. However, and as I pointed out from the European model that I showed previously, there is lower confidence, but some guidance does put heavy rainfall in that northeastern section, say from the metro east-northeast up into the I-85 corridor, that we'll have to watch more closely as things start to unfold into the weekend. Taking a look at the forecast for both Sunday and Monday, we will see an overall decrease in the coverage of the showers and thunderstorms. However, there will still be some scattered showers and thunderstorms around, but overall decreased from Saturday. The highest rain and storm chances will be mainly south of a Columbus-Macon line on Sunday, and then we'll see that uptick across northern Georgia, particularly far northern Georgia, on Monday. Rainfall amounts overall will be generally light. However, we will see an increase in the rainfall amounts with increased coverage in storms across northern Georgia on Monday. Let's step ahead to the tail end of the forecast, days 6 and 7 for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. Overall, there are low-end chances of scattered afternoon and evening thunderstorms and showers. However, it does look like there is a drying trend once we get beyond Monday or so. Near normal to below normal temps on the way for next week, with generally light to near zero rainfall amounts expected across the area, only in areas that could see a shower or isolated thunderstorm. Here is a look for your specific location of temperature forecast for the next 7 days. As you can see from the forecast across all of the cities of North and Central Georgia, Friday looks like it's going to be the warmest day, followed by a general cooling trend with those increased chances of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, with high temperatures generally in the upper 70s to low 80s across all locations, and low temperatures in the middle 60s or so through middle portions of next week. Here is the precipitation and humidity outlook for the region through the next 7 days as well. And from this, you can also discern that Saturday has the highest chances of rain, followed by maybe Sunday into Monday afternoon. And then we start to see precip chances decrease to near normal or slightly below normal chances by the middle part of next week. The graphic on the top depicts the dew point forecast across the region over the next 7 days, and relatively status quo. So it's not like we're going to expect any drier air to filter in here, just more cloud cover holding temperatures down. Here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation and temperature outlooks. And as you can see on the left-hand side, 6 to 10 day temperature outlook looks to be likely near or below normal, as I just pointed out. And precipitation outlooks, maybe a slightly above normal chance of being above normal on the precip side. When we look out even further in the 8 to 14 day window at the temperature and precip outlooks, you can see maybe near to maybe slightly below normal on the temperature side. Precipitation, again, looks like it remains above normal, so we may see near or above normal precip chances each day in the extended. Switching gears to the tropics, now that we are approaching the peak of the hurricane season, this is the 7-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center. And you can see there is an area off the African coast that may be a slight chance of formation over the next 7 days. But as I will show you in a second, there isn't much of a risk to the United States coastline, at least in the near term. As I was saying, the tropical shenanigans will likely be unlikely through next week. We do have a large trough of low pressure over the eastern United States, and that will act as a barrier in helping steer any storms that develop in the Atlantic out to sea, since the jet stream is dipping a little bit further south than usual. This pattern typically suggests that a near zero risk for tropical activity, at least for Georgia, through next weekend exists. In the long-range tropical outlook that's issued by the Climate Prediction Center that extends out into week 2 and week 3, you can see the graphic on the right-hand side. Atlantic tropical activity could pick up in week 3. Week 2 we're still protected a little bit from that trough over the eastern United States, but by week 3 we'll need to start watching for a steering pattern change across the eastern half of the country, as tropical activity does look like it might pick up in the Atlantic by the middle of September, but that's something we'll have to watch when we get closer. And that concludes this week's weather briefing. We hope you all have a great Labor Day weekend. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to reach out to us at any one of the means you see on your screen here. Have a great weekend.